Hi, how you doing? We have somehow reached the end of January. I also don't know how we did that. I know for a lot of people, January felt like a really long month. For me, it flew by. I thought we had like another week left. We don't. But I did read quite a lot in January, and surprise, surprise, all of them were good books. I mean, I do have ratings all over the scale, but considering I had an abysmal reading year last year, ratings wise, it's already looking up. I don't want to jinx it, but it's looking up, babe. I'm so excited about that because I cannot handle another year of mediocre reads. So I'm glad to say we're doing better. We really are. But before we get into the books that I read this month, let's just get into these stats because I always love me some stats. So in total, I read 15 books in the month of January, which amounts to 5,609 pages read, which is an average of 373.93 pages per book and an average of 182.93 pages per day. New stats: I finished 0 series and I have 0 DNFs. These two things are things that I already kept track of in my reading journal, but I thought I'd also share with you just for your information. Then for format, we have 5 books I physically own, 1 ebook, 6 galleys from NetGalley, and 3 library books. For star rating, and this is the kicker, we have 2 2 stars, 5 3 stars, 5 4 stars, and 3 5 stars, which is an average rating of a 3.6, which I think is higher than anything I had last year. So we're winning, we really are. Then for age range, I have 1 children's book, 6 YA novels, and 8 adult books. And then for genre, we have a nice mix with 7 contemporaries, 2 fantasies, 1 graphic novel, 1 mystery thriller, 1 horror, 1 historical fiction, and 2 sci-fi books. So yeah, that was a long list of stats, but as I told you, we're doing good this year. We really are. So let's just get into the books that I read this month. I'm sorry by the way for the glare of my glasses. For some reason it's really bad today. But the first book I read in January is X Marks the Spot by Gloria Chao, which I gave 5 stars to and as a galley off of NetGalley. This is actually one that I started reading in 2024 and it pissed me off that I couldn't finish it before the end of the year because shit like this messes me up. But it happens. But I did really enjoy this book. It took me a little bit to get into just because I don't know, I just wasn't finding a connection with it. I wasn't disliking it, but I don't know, I wasn't immediately pulled into things. But from the second we kind of get to Taiwan and we get into the scavenger hunt, I really got into this, and I also feel like this book picks up a little bit more. The main character did frustrate me at points, just little things, nothing necessarily bad, but just, you know, personal preference things. But I do think her growth throughout the book is really great. I love the discussions around heritage and family throughout this book as well. I thought they were really well done. The scavenger hunt was really fun. The romance was kind of cute, a bit underdeveloped, but definitely adorable. And yeah, I just had a really good time with it. I don't really have that much to say about it. Then next I read A Tempest of Tea by Hafsah Faizal, which I give 3 out of 5 stars to. This I like more than I was expecting because I feel like I've only heard negative reviews of this book, and like it was a 3 stars, so it's not like I thought it was phenomenal, but I did like it more than I said I thought I would because of all of those negative reviews. But basically my problem with this book is that I felt like it took a really long time to get going. It's a heist book, but the heist is such a small element of this book. We spend a whole lot of time just kind of like planning, preparing, getting to know these characters, but then at the same time I don't feel like we get to know these characters properly, and it takes so long, and then like the heist happens so quickly. I do feel like that the heist was a fun part to the book and I liked that part. I just wish it was a bit longer, but oh well. I do again have to say that I think the characters are well developed, and I feel like that also kept me from getting a full attachment to this book. I did really like Artie, which is like our main character. We follow 3 POVs, but she's like the main, and I enjoyed reading from her POV the most. But yeah, I also really like the world. I like the idea of this. I really did. And I think the world was very interesting. I like the way this book leaves off. I am very excited to read the sequel, which is coming out later this year, but it left me a bit underwhelmed. Then the next book that I read is Flirting With Disaster by Naina Kumar, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars since I got it from NetGalley. This one took me by surprise. This is pitched as a retelling or reimagining of Sweet Home Alabama, which is a movie with Reese Witherspoon, which I like, but I have issues with. So I was really excited for this, to see how that we imagined it was going to be done, but also, you know, a bit wary. I loved it. This was so good. This is how second chances should be done. Like, honestly, loved it so much. I honestly think the author did a really great job balancing showing us their connection in the past, and then also why they break up in the past, and also why we should be rooting for them now. And then we form that connection, breaking down why it didn't work between them back then, and showing us how things have changed. I was rooting for these two so hard, and I cried so hard through this book as well. On top of that, a female main character wants to go into a career in politics, which is also a big part of this book, and there with that a lot of discussions around wanting to be there for your community and how to best do that are in this book as well, and I really like that aspect to it as well. There's also some discussions about like difficult like family dynamics and stuff that I thought were really well done. Overall, like the two characters were very well rounded, like a main character and a love interest, but I also liked the cast of side characters that we got, which are a smaller part of this book because they are mostly like kind of locked into this house. But we do get like little glimpses of side characters, and even though they have small appearances, I feel like they are very lively characters. Then next I read Does It Hurt by H.D. Carlton, which I give 2 out of 5 stars to. This is a dark romance, and if you know me, that's not my genre, but this one did kind of go viral in the bookish hemisphere, I believe 2 years ago, so it has been a little while. But there was one thing about me that I'm very curious. So when I saw this in my library, something came over me and I picked it up and I read it. It has been returned, hence why you get a picture on the screen. And you know what? I surprisingly do not regret it. I genuinely think that if this is your type of book, this is a good one. I get it. I do. It's just really not my thing. I feel like my main issue with this book is that I feel like the romance was a bit too lust-based for me. And therefore, I just never really got invested into that part of the book, which is the most significant part of the book, obviously. It's a romance book. Like, I just need more of that like emotional connection, that chemistry together that isn't just physical, and I feel like I was missing that from this book. But that's very personal preference. I feel like that's something a lot of people don't really mind. There's also so many sex scenes which just bored me at a certain point, which is also why this landed in like the 3-star range. But I feel like it has very compelling characters, has a very compelling plot. I feel like at times it generally gets a bit eerie. It never get fully spooky, but it definitely like leans on like that eerie side where you constantly feel like something is off, that I really enjoyed. And ultimately the kind of like the climax of the book I thought was really well done, and I just at that point was on the edge of my seat. And yeah. Then next I read Crumble by Meredith, McClaren and Andrea Bell, which I give 4 out of 5 stars to. Together from NetGalley. This one comes out on the 25th of February. And yeah, this is just a cute graphic novel. I don't really have a lot to say about it, but I really enjoyed my time reading it. I thought the concept of it was really fun, of baking feelings into something. I thought was fun, and then especially how it then also tackles grief in a way that is age appropriate, I thought was just really well done. And it is just a very cutesy art style to it as well, and overall I don't know, I liked it. I just don't have a whole lot to say about it. Then next I read The Sea of Unspoken Things by Adrienne Young, which I give 2 out of 5 stars to. Again, I got from NetGalley. This is a difficult one to review because if this wasn't a fantasy, I feel like I would have liked it more, but officially it's fantasy. But like obviously its main category is a mystery, and I like the mystery to it. I do feel like the reveals were a bit lackluster for me, but overall I had a good time just like being with a main character and in a small town and just trying to figure out this mystery of what happened to her twin brother. I thought that was very interesting, and in that journey we did take some twists and turns that I didn't see coming, but like the ultimate reveals I thought were lackluster, if that makes sense, and really predictable as well. Like, I don't know, I wasn't a big fan of the big reveals at the end. I feel like they were a bit of a letdown. It also has incredibly atmospheric writing. Like if you want something kind of like dark and gloomy, at least like rainy wintry days, pick this up because it definitely will immediately like pull you into that atmosphere. But like I said, it's also a fantasy. It has fantastical elements, and I feel like if you're gonna include that, you gotta do that properly. I can judge you on that, and I feel like this book didn't do that. I feel like this book would have been the exact same if it wasn't for these fantastical elements in it, and therefore I don't get why they were included and added into like another letdown for this book, which is why it ended up like middle of the road. The next book that I read is Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth, which I gave 4 stars to. This is another one that I've been like nervous to read because it has gotten a lot of negative reviews, but I love this. I genuinely ate this up. It is a really thick book. It's a very slow burn as well, but it just was exactly my type of book. I just really, it has a past storyline and a present one, and the past feels very gothic. It has this like eerie current throughout it. People are dying. It takes place at a school. It's very queer, and I love just the different people we follow and how we get their whole histories in this book as well. It just feels very whole and well-rounded. And in the present storyline, we follow 3 women involved with filming a movie that is basically adapting what happened to these, which is basically about what happened to these people in the past. And this gets spooky there as well, but for a big chunk of it, it is just getting to know these 3 characters, getting to know their dynamic, and it's not always equally as friendly, but as the book continues, they get closer and it turns slightly poly, so we always support that. And I love the bond they formed throughout this book. I also think, again, as it continues, more kind of those eerie elements creep into that part of the book as well, and I just thought it was very well worth it, and it's just a journey I loved being on, even if it was a very, very slow burn. Like, keep that in mind, this is a very slow book. The only reason that this didn't end up being a 5-star for me is that I feel like the ending let me down a little bit. Like, I get having an open ending. I feel like that's the best way to end this book, because the not knowing is part of what makes this what it is. But I just feel like, especially when it comes to our main characters kind of journeys, I wanted just a little bit more. I wanted just a couple more answers, if that makes sense. Just a little bit more of a conclusion to have it be fully satisfactory for me. And then next I read Throne of the Fallen by Kerri Maniscalco, which I gave 5 stars to. In December, I binged my way through the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy, was so utterly obsessed with it that of course in January we had to delve into the spin-off series, and I really again enjoyed this book. I don't love it as much as Kingdom of the Wicked, just because I had some issues with this book, but everything I loved about that trilogy is still present in this book. It takes place in the same world. It's still very interesting. We do expand on things, like we go to different parts of the world in this one that we haven't visited yet, or that we briefly visited, and I loved getting to explore different nooks and crannies of the world, if that makes sense. I also really liked our 2 main characters. I thought they were very interesting characters. I loved their back and forth. Again, their relationship was a bit too lust-based for me. I wanted a bit more of that like emotional connection, especially because I know Kerri Maniscalco can write that, because I had that with Kingdom of the Wicked. So it felt a bit of a disappointment that we didn't properly get that within this book. But I did still like, I still rooted for them to get together. I liked the dynamic, their back and forth. And, you know, I was not against them as a couple. I wanted a bit more on the emotional side instead of the physical side. And overall, also like the story of this, does have this game element to it that I really enjoyed. I thought it was a great way to frame the story, that was very interesting. My main issue with this book is that both of our main characters carry a huge secret, and it takes so long for that secret to be revealed to us. And the thing is, when it happens in the book, I feel like it makes sense for them to reveal the secrets to each other. But I feel like to us, the reader, I feel like it should have been just at least hinted at a bit more, because I feel like these secrets are very vital when it comes to these characters' motivations. And it just, I think it isn't until like the last 100 pages of this book that you found out those secrets, those motivations, and therefore it can be hard, because you don't have that motivation for like most of the book. It can be very hard to feel fully pulled in to the story of this. Then next I read Ace Marvel's Spy by Jenni L, which I give 5 stars to, and I got it from NetGalley. This is a historical fiction novel, which is a bit different from what I typically read, I know, but this one just sounded so interesting to me. It's based on a real life person named Alice Marble, who was a incredible tennis player who also functioned as a spy during the Second World War. And I don't know, if that doesn't sound badass to you, I don't know what will. And I do stand by it that I think, at least from the information presented in this book, I have not done any further research upon Alice Marble, but based on what is presented in this book, I do think she was an incredible person. And the way that throughout this book we see her get knocked down over and over and over again, and get up over and over and over again, and just so having such a strong resolve to get better, to be better, to get stronger, to prove people wrong, is just so incredibly inspiring. And I love that aspect of the book. I just think she did a lot of incredible things, and I honestly almost every single time she did something new in this book, I was like, how the fuck is this all the same person? Because it's just so incredible. But I wasn't the biggest fan of the writing of this book. I feel like at times it felt very juvenile. It's an adult book, but generally at times I thought it was written for children because that's just how young it felt. And there's definitely some times where it felt like just the author found some fun facts in her research and just like, I have to include this in the book no matter if it fits in or not. The messaging could also feel a bit preachy and just like not naturally incorporated in the book, which especially felt weird because of all of the things that Alice Marble, you don't need to stronghold like some of these messages. Like, it's very clear on what she's doing, what we're supposed to take away from this. And then the dialogue could feel a bit stiff at times as well. And then overall, and this last bit is personal preference, is this is told in like a then and now storyline, both of course are in the past, but the then is more focused on the start of her tennis career, and then the now is more focused on the start of the war and like everything that happened after that. And they constantly switch between each other, and I feel like I personally would have liked this book more if it just was told in one chronological order, because I feel like how it was executed now, I feel like there's a lot of time in the now storyline where we are referencing things from the past that doesn't have not happened in the then storyline. So then when we get to that, it just, in the then storyline, it doesn't hit the way it's supposed to, because we already dealt with all of like the aftermath and the consequences, and we know how everyone around her reacted to it and how she like evolved from it, I guess. So it just then falls flat to see it happening when we already know all of it, if that makes sense. Then next we have Iron Widow by Xiran Jay Zhao, which I gave 5 stars to. This was a reread. I read this book originally like back when it first came out, which is a couple of years ago now. So before going into the sequel, which was published in December, I wanted to reread this just to refresh my memory, because you know the noggin isn't always as good as it used to be. And I'm so glad I did, because even though I loved this book the first time I read it, I somehow even loved it more upon reread. I just think this is such a fun book, but also has a lot of important things to say, and it does so really well. It is set in a world that is shown incredibly interesting. It has a main character that's a badass, but also just a great character to follow, who isn't perfect but grows a lot and learns a lot, and you can't help but root for. It also has an incredible romance in it. It's not a poly book. The theme for this month, I only read 2 books, but still. But I like how all 3 of the relationship were very different, but combined still made sense, and together all 3 of them just had a great connection, and I really like that aspect of it as well. It's very fun, action-packed story as well, very fast-paced, and yeah, I just fucking adore this so much. Then next I read The Lodge by Kayla Olson, which I gave 2 to 5 stars to, and as a guy from NetGalley. And honestly, my experience with this book is like my least favorite kind of reading experience, because when I started this book, I was giggling, kicking my feet, having such a good time. I feel like I just found my book, you know? It had a lot of different elements that I really enjoyed. I loved the dynamic between the main character and the love interest. I thought their flirting, which is generally had me just like this, you know, like so excited. And then there also is a bit of a mixed media element to this as well that I really enjoyed. But then about like the halfway mark, a reveal happens. I call it a reveal because it's very obvious to the reader from the beginning, but like to the main character it is like a big reveal. And after that happens, I swear to God, something in this book shifts and every main character becomes the most egotistical, hypocritical person you've ever met. And I got so pissed off at this book. And the thing is, I can't even talk to you about that properly because it would involve so many spoilers, but I got so angry at this book. The next book that I read is Heavenly Tyrant by Xiran Jay Zhao, which I give 5 stars to. Of course, after reading I'm a Widow, I had to get to the sequel, and somehow this is even better than Iron Widow. It is a very different vibe. Like I said, Iron Widow is very fun, fast, action-packed. This slows down a little. I wouldn't say it's a slow book, but compared to Iron Widow it is. But like, compared to Bad Heroines, it definitely isn't. So it's all relative. And this is definitely more politics-based, a lot of political intrigue, which personally is something I loved. So I adored reading this book. I thought it was still so interesting. So much, like, honestly, the end of Iron Widow is world-changing for this world. Obviously, I'm not going to say more because I don't want to spoil you, but I have to say that for some context for things I'm going to say. So this book just shakes things up so much, and it's so interesting to see different parts to this world, I guess, be leveled, having a different political outlook on things is very interesting as well. I also love a political intrigue book, because just like the different moves people are making all over the board are so interesting. And then sometimes you don't see something coming and you feel genuinely betrayed, just like the main character, because you're like, how dare you do that to me, even if it's not to me, it's to the character. I also think Satya, the main character, goes through a lot of growth in this book. She grew up poor, so she missed out on a lot of education, and now she's taken over the opportunity to learn about the things that she didn't learn and like get that foundational basis, and it makes her stronger. You can totally throughout this book see, as she's continuing her lessons, how she's getting better at this game of politics, how she's getting better at playing the field just in general and expressing her ideals and opinions that have been there since the start of book one, but she just gets stronger in her message basically. And I loved seeing that growth, and it feels a bit more subtle than her growth in Iron Widow, but I still loved it. The next book that I read is 24 Seconds From Now by Jason Reynolds, which I gave out of 5 stars to. And the annoying thing about this book is that I think when I read this, even like 2 years ago, I think I would have given this a 5 star. I feel like this book very much is about a transitional period in a teenager's life when they graduate high school, and it's a lot about that. I mean, technically it's about sex, but I feel like metaphorically it's all about being at this crossroads in your life and like a list changing point. And I feel like this just would have hit so much harder. Well, I was at that point in my life. I'm not. I'm 23. Not to say that I'm very much past that, but I am past that. But I can still really appreciate this book for what it is. It is really short, but I feel like Jason Reynolds manages to put so much in this and does it so well. It feels so natural. I generally think I want to push this in the hands of so many like teens that are in this aspect of their life, because like I said, I do think if I read that at the same time, you know, it came out last year so I couldn't have, but if someone had given this to me at that time, like right before high school graduation or like right after even, this would have made such an impact on me, but like it just failed to hit its mark for me personally. Then next up, I read Make My Wish Come True by Rachael Lippincott and Alyson Derrick, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars to. Now, I hear you think, why did you read a Christmas book in January? I know, but I needed to get this read for a video you're getting next month. But I discovered this Christmas that Christmas romances maybe not my thing, but I had already bought this because it's Rachael Lippincott and Alyson Derrick, who I love with all my heart. Like, they've written so many books I love, so I was very excited for this. Plus, just kind of like the whole premise of it just sounded right up my alley, so I was so excited for it. So I'm very sad to report that I liked it, but I was also disappointed by it. Let's just start with things I liked about it. First of all, the actually kind of the holiday setting. Our 2 main characters go on like 12 dates, holiday related dates. Some of them aren't, but most of them are. And I feel like that was a really fun way to frame the story. I liked the different dates. It definitely brought in the holiday spirit. I also loved one of our main characters, Arden's journey. A lot of this book is about Arden, which is kind of like my issue with it, but we're going to focus on the positive first. She is a actress, and she started when she was 14. She's 18 now, and she's had a lot of pressure to kind of pretend to be someone she's not for publicity's sake, and now she has to break out of that because it isn't working anymore, and she doesn't really remember who she is because she spent so long pretending, and like especially in her formative years. And I like the different discussions that came along with that, as well as just general discussions around fame. On top of that, her parents also just basically abandoned her, and she hasn't seen them in like 2 years, I believe. So it's a lot about that, and because of her difficult relationships with her parents, she's also felt very hesitant to go back to her hometown and back to, or like talk to her grandmother, who she has a really close relationship to, because her parents just went up and left. She just has kind of felt a bit of a shame to talk to her grandma. And I liked all of the different aspects all around in that. I thought it was really well done. I also thought the main romance had some cute moments. It just, and now we're getting into the negative, I thought it was underdeveloped. I feel like, I mean, I thought it was cute, but I feel like this book very much leans on a foundation of, in the past, they were best friends, they had crushes on each other, they still are in love with each other even after all this time because of that. But we never get any of that past. We don't see that, we don't talk about it that much, and therefore it feels like we're leaning very heavily on this foundation that we don't have, and therefore it just sinks in and falls flat, and also really worked for me. Also think our other main character, Caroline, don't know that much about her. I know she wants to be a journalist. I don't know why she wants to be a journalist, but that's it. Oh, and she's gay. I guess I know that she's a lesbian. That's kind of it, because even when we're in her POV, I feel like most of it's about Arnon, and I get it because that storyline is so strong, and like I said, I like that so much. But I kind of feel like Caroline had a couple of like B plots, but like nothing major, no character journey, no development of her own, nothing to battle up against that. Basically, we have arrived at the final book for today, which thank God, I've been talking for a long time, but that is Funny You Should Ask by Alyssa Sussman, which gives you the 5 stars too. I loved Once More with Feeling by the same author, so I was very excited to read this book because I feel like it's more popular. But again, this is one that I have heard very mixed things about, so I did go in a bit cautiously, and yikes. I get why this has so many negative reviews. So let's just start with our main character, Insufferable. What the hell? Like, I as you know, I don't like calling a character pathetic, especially on a female character, but damn, the most pathetic person you'll ever meet, that's the main character of this book. Yikes. I also feel like the romance was a bit lackluster. It is then now, again, and I like the switch up between the two. I feel like it kept the book very well balanced, and I loved kind of like switching in between. I also think it had good moments to switch, if that makes sense, where you could see like the different parallels. And in the then storyline, I kind of found myself rooting for the relationship. I still had some issues with it, but I could understand. I didn't get chemistry. They had like great flirty moments, some good like sexy moments. I could definitely understand you telling me that even 10 years down the line they'd still remember these 3 days together and like think of the other person as the one that got away. Like, I understood that. I generally got that vibe. I went along for it. But then we get in the now storyline, which like I said is 10 years later. That's a massive amount of time. And I feel like in the love storyline, we just did nothing for this relationship. We're just like, hey, remember how much we loved each other 10 years ago? Yeah, well, I still love you that way now. I'm just like, you're an entirely different person. He's an entirely different person. We've both acknowledged that. You've both gone through a lot of shit in those 10 years. You're very different people. What's to say? You still match, like, honestly. But I do have to say, it's not a 1 star because there are some elements that I liked it. Like I said, I think in the then storyline they have great chemistry. I actually like the love interest a lot. I think he's a very interesting character. And on top of that, I also like the cast of side characters, especially Ollie. I loved him so much. But yeah, there you go. I have been yapping. You know what? I have taken for granted that the past couple of months I didn't read as much books as I did this month. Because I was like, oh, the last couple of episodes I did were filmed very shortly. This is nearly an hour. I should slow things down again. But I don't know how long it's going to be once I've edited it. But you'll know. And I hope you still enjoy it and you don't mind me yapping forever and ever and ever. So I'm going to stop doing that. And it's time for you to yap. Because let me know in the comments what you thought of these books, if you read them, as well as some of the other books you read in January. And hopefully I'll see you around next time. Bye.